Music festivals are supposed to be a celebration of life, a place where people come together to share their love for music and community. But sometimes, these gatherings of joy can turn into scenes of unimaginable horror, when massive crowds, negligence, and unforeseen disasters collide. The results can be catastrophic. The stories you are about to hear are some of the most terrifying examples of when the music stopped and the screaming began. Case 1. The nightclub Inferno. February 20th, 2003, started like any other Thursday night in West Warwick, Rhode Island. The Station nightclub, a small, unassuming venue with a capacity of just 404 people, was hosting a concert by Great White, an 80s rock band known for their hit Once Bitten, Twice Shy. But on this night, over 460 people had crammed into the club, eager to relive the glory days of hair metal. The venue was old, with outdated fire safety measures and highly flammable soundproofing foam lining the walls and ceiling around the stage. As Great White launched into their opening song, Desert Moon, their tour manager, Daniel Bichel, set off a barrage of pyrotechnics without proper safety clearance. Sparks from the fireworks immediately ignited the cheap polyurethane foam that lined the walls. At first, the crowd cheered, thinking the flames were part of the show. But within 30 seconds, the fire had spread across the entire ceiling, and thick, black smoke began to pour into the room. The band stopped playing and tried to escape through the back door, but guitarist Ty Longley turned back to grab his guitar and was never seen alive again. Panic erupted as the crowd realized the danger. A human stampede surged towards the main entrance, the same narrow hallway everyone had used to enter. The bottleneck was catastrophic. People were crushed against the walls, trampled underfoot, and pinned in the doorway. The smoke was so thick that visibility dropped to 0 within a minute. The air became a toxic soup of carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, and other deadly gases released by the burning foam. Those who fell were trampled by the people behind them, and those who made it to the door found themselves stuck in a horrific pile of bodies. Outside, survivors described hearing the screams of people trapped inside, their hands reaching through the flames. Firefighters arrived within minutes, but the building was already fully engulfed. 100 people died that night, including Ty Longley. They were either crushed to death in the stampede, suffocated by the toxic smoke, or consumed by the flames. Over 200 more were injured, many with severe burns and smoke inhalation. The tragedy led to criminal charges against the club's owners, Jeff and Michael Derderian, and tour manager Daniel Bichel. All three accepted plea deals, and in 2010, a $176 million settlement was reached with the survivors and victims' families. The Station Fire Memorial Park was dedicated in 2017, a somber reminder of the lives lost. Case 2. The Locked Doors of Cromanon. December 30th, 2004 was supposed to be a night of celebration in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The República Cromanon Rock Club in the Barrio Once neighborhood was hosting a concert by Callejeros, a popular Argentine rock band. The club was packed with an estimated 3,000 fans, nearly 3 times its legal capacity of 1,031. The venue's owner, Omar Chaban, had a reputation for cutting corners and ignoring safety regulations. To prevent people from sneaking in without paying, he had ordered several emergency exits to be chained shut and padlocked. The club was also a month overdue for a fire inspection and had no functioning sprinkler system. During the concert, a fan in the crowd lit a flare, a common practice at Argentine rock shows. The flare ignited the plastic netting and foam decorations that hung from the ceiling. Within seconds, the fire spread across the entire roof, and the club was plunged into darkness as the power went out. The few available exits were completely overwhelmed by the stampeding crowd. With the main emergency exits locked, People were trapped in a maze of smoke and fire. Many tried to break down the locked doors, but the chains held firm. The panic was indescribable. People were crushed to death in the stampede, their bodies piled up against the locked exits. Others succumbed to the toxic fumes released by the burning plastic, which filled the club with thick, black smoke. The fire department arrived quickly, but by the time they broke through the locked doors, it was too late for most. In the end, 194 people lost their lives, and over 1,400 were injured. The victims ranged in age from 15 to 63, with the majority being teenagers and young adults. The tragedy exposed a deep-rooted culture of corruption and negligence in Buenos Aires. Omar Chaban was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his role in the disaster, and several city officials were also charged with negligence. The mayor of Buenos Aires, Aníbal Ibarra, was impeached and removed from office. The Cromanon fire remains the deadliest nightclub fire in Argentine history and one of the deadliest concert disasters in the world. Case 3. The Supper Club Maze. May 28, 1977, was a busy Saturday night at the Beverly Hills Supper Club in Southgate, Kentucky, just across the bridge from Cincinnati, Ohio. The club was a sprawling, elegant venue that had been a popular entertainment destination since the 1940s. On this night, it was hosting multiple events, including several banquets, receptions, and a concert by singer and actor John Davidson. The club was a maze of narrow corridors and function rooms, all connected by a confusing network of passageways. On this night, it was dangerously overcrowded, with an estimated 3,000 people spread across the various rooms. Around 8:45 p.m., a fire broke out in an unused part of the club, later believed to have been caused by faulty aluminum wiring. The fire smoldered for hours, filling hidden wall spaces with smoke and toxic gases. When the fire finally burst out, it spread with explosive force, racing through the club's wooden structure. The staff tried to evacuate the thousands of guests, but the club's confusing layout and the sheer number of people made it an impossible task. The cabaret room, where John Davidson was performing, was packed with over 1,000 people in a space designed for 600. The room had only a few narrow exits, and when the fire reached the room, it created a flashover, a wave of superheated gas that incinerated everything in its path. A busboy, Walter Bailey, bravely stopped the show to make an announcement about the fire and pointed out the exits. Several people made their way toward the exits he'd indicated, while others didn't take the threat seriously, thinking it was a false alarm or a prank. When the fire reached the cabaret room, the crowd panicked. People were trampled to death as they tried to escape through the narrow exits. The smoke was so thick that many couldn't see where they were going and became disoriented. Some were overcome by the toxic fumes before they could reach an exit. Others were trapped in the maze of corridors, unable to find their way out. 165 people died that night, many of them trampled to death or overcome by the toxic smoke. The Beverly Hills Supper Club fire remains one of the deadliest nightclub fires in U.S. history and led to major changes in fire safety regulations for public venues. Case 4. The Ghost Ship's Deadly Party. On December 2, 2016, an illegal electronic music party was in full swing at the Ghost Ship, a warehouse in Oakland, California, that had been converted into an artists' collective. The space was a death trap. It was a cluttered maze of flammable materials, including tapestries, wooden sculptures, and piles of old furniture. The second floor was accessible only by a makeshift staircase made of wooden pallets, and there were no smoke detectors, sprinklers, or marked exits. The electrical system was a chaotic web of extension cords and power strips, creating a significant fire hazard. Around 11:30 p.m., during a performance by the electronic music duo Golden Donna, a fire broke out on the first floor. The exact cause is still unknown, but investigators believe it may have been caused by an electrical malfunction or a discarded cigarette. The flames spread with incredible speed, fueled by the abundance of flammable materials. Within minutes, the warehouse was filled with thick black smoke, and the second floor became a death trap. The partygoers on the second floor were trapped. The makeshift staircase was quickly consumed by the fire, cutting off the only escape route. The smoke made it impossible to see, and the lack of marked exits meant that people didn't know where to go. Some tried to jump from the second-floor windows, but the drop was too high. Others huddled together, hoping to be rescued, but the smoke and flames were too intense. Firefighters arrived within minutes, but the building was already fully engulfed. They had to wait for the fire to die down before they could enter and search for survivors. 36 people died in the fire, their bodies found huddled together on the second floor, some with their arms around each other. The victims ranged in age from 17 to 61, and they came from all over the Bay Area and beyond, drawn to the ghost ship's reputation as a haven for artists and musicians. The tragedy exposed the dark side of the affordable housing crisis in the Bay Area, where artists and musicians are often forced to live and work in unsafe, illegal spaces. Derek Almina, the primary leaseholder of the ghost ship, was sentenced to 12 years in prison, though he served only 1.5 years in home confinement. The city of Oakland reached a $32.7 million settlement with the victims' families, with $23.5 million going to the families of those who died, and $9.2 million going to Sam Maxwell, the last person to escape the fire, who suffered life-changing injuries. Case 5. The Tunnel of Death. The Love Parade was a massive, free-access techno festival that had been a German institution since 1989, when it started as an impromptu party in Berlin. By 2010, it had grown into one of the world's largest electronic music festivals, attracting over 1 million attendees. But in 2010, the city of Berlin refused to host the event, citing safety concerns over the size of the crowd. The festival was also cancelled in 2009 in Bochum due to the inability to accommodate so many spectators. In 2010, it was held in the city of Duisburg, in a former freight station. The festival grounds were poorly designed for such a large event. The only way in or out was through a single, long ramp and a series of tunnels. The area was only designed to hold 250,000 people, but an estimated 1.4 million showed up. As the crowd swelled, the entrance ramp became a horrific bottleneck. Police tried to close the entrance, but the pressure from the crowd behind was too great. People were being pushed into the tunnels, and there was nowhere for them to go. Inside the tunnel, the crush began. People were squeezed together so tightly that they couldn't breathe. Their ribs were crushed, their lungs unable to expand. They were trampled underfoot, their bodies pressed against the walls. The panic was overwhelming. People screamed for help, but their voices were drowned out by the noise of the crowd. Some tried to climb the walls to escape, but there was no way out. Police used loudspeakers to tell people entering the tunnel to turn around and leave in the other direction, but the message was lost in the chaos. The crowd behind continued to push forward, unaware of the horror unfolding inside the tunnel. 21 people died in the crush, and over 500 were injured. The victims were from all over the world, a testament to the festival's international appeal. They ranged in age from 18 to 38, and they had come to Duisburg to celebrate their love of music. City officials made the controversial decision not to evacuate the festival site for fear of fueling more panic. Many unaware festival-goers continued partying for hours, not knowing that people had died just a few hundred meters away. The Love Parade was permanently cancelled after the tragedy, a dark stain on the history of electronic music. Critics and prosecutors accused police and event organizers of failing to properly prepare for such a large event in such a small space. A decade of legal challenges ensued, with a German court ending the manslaughter trial of 3 techno music promoters in May 2020 without a verdict. Case 6. The Astroworld Surge. November 5, 2021, was supposed to be a night of celebration at the Astroworld Festival in Houston, Texas. The festival, founded and headlined by rapper Travis Scott, had attracted a crowd of 50,000 people to NRG Park. The atmosphere was electric, with fans eager to see their idol perform. But as Travis Scott took the stage at 9:02 p.m., the massive crowd began to surge forward, and the night turned into a nightmare. The pressure became so intense that people were squeezed together, unable to breathe or move. Many fell to the ground and were trampled by the crowd. The crush was so severe that some people's ribs were broken, and they suffered cardiac arrest from compression asphyxia. Fans were screaming for help, and some even climbed onto the stage to try to get the attention of security and the performers. But the concert continued for nearly an hour after the first reports of people collapsing. Travis Scott later claimed that he didn't realize the severity of the situation, but videos from the concert show him watching as unconscious fans were carried out of the crowd. The festival's organizers, Live Nation, were also criticized for inadequate crowd control measures and for failing to stop the concert sooner. In the chaos, 10 people, including 9-year-old Ezra Blount, died from compression asphyxia. The other victims ranged in age from 14 to 27. The tragedy sparked a massive public outcry and a wave of lawsuits against Travis Scott, Live Nation, and the festival organizers. It also raised serious questions about crowd safety at large music festivals and the responsibility of artists to protect their fans. The Astroworld disaster was a stark reminder of the dangers of massive, uncontrolled crowds and the devastating consequences when things go wrong. The incident also highlighted the need for better crowd management training and emergency response protocols at large events. Case 7. The Roskilde Mosh Pit. June 30th, 2000, was the 3rd day of the Roskilde Festival in Denmark, one of Europe's largest and most prestigious music festivals. The headliner for the night was Pearl Jam, one of the most famous rock bands in the world. The ground in front of the main stage was a muddy mess after days of rain, and the conditions were far from ideal. But the crowd of 50,000 fans didn't care. They were there to see Pearl Jam, and nothing was going to stop them. As the band began to play, the crowd surged forward, and a mosh pit formed near the front of the stage. The pressure became so intense that people at the front of the crowd began to fall. The muddy ground made it impossible for them to get back up. The crowd behind them, unaware of what was happening, continued to push forward. The people on the ground were trampled, their lungs unable to expand under the weight of the people on top of them. The band stopped playing as soon as they realized what was happening. Lead singer Eddie Vedder pleaded with the crowd to back up, shouting, "Back up! Back up! We have people down here!" But it was too late. 9 men were crushed to death in the mosh pit. They ranged in age from 17 to 26, and they came from Denmark, Sweden, Germany, Australia, and the Netherlands. The band was devastated and cancelled the rest of their European tour. The Roskilde tragedy was a wake-up call for the music industry, and it led to major changes in crowd control and safety measures at festivals around the world. Pearl Jam was deeply affected by the tragedy, and later wrote a song, "Love Boat Captain," in memory of the 9 fans they lost that day. The lyrics include the line, "Lost 9 friends will never know," a haunting tribute to the victims. In the decades since, Pearl Jam members have met some of the victims' families and have spoken publicly about the lasting impact of the tragedy on their lives and careers. Case 8. The Collapsing Stage. August 13, 2011, was a hot, humid day at the Indiana State Fair in Indianapolis. A crowd of thousands had gathered at the outdoor Hoosier Lottery Grandstand, eagerly awaiting a performance by the country music duo Sugarland. The weather had been threatening all day, with dark clouds rolling in and high winds picking up. Fair organizers were monitoring the weather closely, but they decided to proceed with the concert, hoping the storm would pass. Just before 9 p.m., as the opening act finished their set, a massive gust of wind, estimated at 70 miles per hour, tore through the fairgrounds. The outdoor stage, a massive structure of steel scaffolding and rigging, was not designed to withstand such a powerful force. The wind caught the stage's roof like a sail, and the entire structure began to sway. For a moment, it seemed like it might hold, but then, with a deafening crash, the entire stage came crashing down onto the crowd below. 7 people were killed instantly, crushed by the falling stage and the twisted steel. 58 more were injured, some critically. The victims were crushed by the falling stage, their bodies mangled by the twisted steel and heavy equipment. The scene was one of absolute chaos, with people screaming and crying, and emergency responders rushing to help the injured. Sugarland's members were backstage at the time and were not injured, but they were deeply shaken by the tragedy. The tragedy was a horrific reminder of the power of nature and the importance of proper engineering and safety precautions at outdoor events. An investigation later found that the stage was not up to code and that the Indiana State Fair Commission did not have adequate emergency plans in place. The fair's weather monitoring system was also criticized for not providing enough warning to evacuate the crowd. In 2014, lawyers representing injured survivors and victims' family members reached a $50 million settlement with 19 companies involved in the construction and operation of the stage. The Indiana State Fair stage collapse led to new regulations for outdoor stages and a greater awareness of the dangers of severe weather at large public gatherings. These stories are a chilling reminder that even in moments of celebration, tragedy can strike without warning. They are a testament to the importance of safety, responsibility, and a little bit of common sense. The next time you're at a festival, remember these stories, be aware of your surroundings, and look out for each other, because in the end, the music is not worth dying for.